Coming up next is on-demand experiences with the CEOs and founders of two unique companies that bring your experiences to the comfort of your homes. Today, we're going to listen in on how Ishan, the founder of Serve, and Claude, the founder of Laugh Lounge, pivoted their companies during the time of a pandemic and what the future looks like for on-demand applications. A reminder to stick around this evening as our sponsors TriNet will be hosting a cook-along with Serve as well. So introducing Ishan and Claude and our moderator from .LA, Kelly O'Grady.
All right, thanks so much for that intro. I'm super excited to be here. So welcome everyone to the On-Demand Experiences panel. As was just mentioned, I'm Kelly O'Grady. I'm gonna be your moderator, your guide, kind of like your Yoda I'm aspiring to be for this session. Yeah, Claude, you get it, right? Yes. Before we get to introductions, I just wanna say a hearty thank you to everyone for joining us this afternoon. I know it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. on debate night. So I applaud you for tuning in. I promise we are going to make this super fun and try and make it as interactive as possible. Big thank you to Hawke Media and City of LA for organizing e-commerce week for us all. I've been enjoying everything that I've been able to attend. But to jump in, I am joined by these two esteemed gentlemen here. We've got Ishan and Claude. So thanks so much for joining me, guys. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yep, same here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, awesome. So before we jump into the meat here, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves, kind of tell us a little bit about you and your companies. So Ishan, if you don't mind kicking us off here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So my name is Ishan Singh. I'm the founder CEO of Serve. We are a on-demand platform for personal chef services. What that essentially does, or what we essentially do, is enable clients to find chefs for experiences that they're looking for, culinary experiences. So whether you have a dinner party or a birthday party and you want a chef to come to your house and make this amazing meal for you and your guests, you can do that. Or if you want a chef to come and make a few days worth of meals and stick it in your fridge, you can do that as well. So we provide access to a variety of different chefs, and we are actually going for a full launch here at the end of October. So really looking forward to that. Pretty excited about it.
And I'm excited about that. I'm hungry just listening to that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You have a customer right here already.
Absolutely, man. I'll get you a special invite code.
I'm down. Kelly, I'll just roll into it. I'm Claude Shires. I'm the founder and CEO of Laugh Lounge. We are a streaming service for stand-up comedy, and our whole mission was to bring live stand-up comedy to the world. And so actually, when this whole thing hit, I don't want to say it was in our model to be able to serve people at home, but that's kind of what it's kind of turned into. So, for us, it's about, working with our partners to help, during this time, distribute comedy when everybody needs a laugh. I mean, laughter's the best medicine. I mean, not approved by the FDA, obviously, but, so that's our mission. And so that's what we're here to do. And, I think that it's become more important now than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you heard it here first, guys. Laughter may cure COVID. So before we jump in, I'll give you guys a little bit about me. Undergrad degree and MBA from Harvard. I used to work in a previous life over at Disney in mergers and acquisitions and direct-to-consumer streaming. Did a stint at McKinsey as a consultant, and then finally found what I wanted to do. And now I work at .LA as their head of video and chief on-air correspondent. For those that don't know, .LA is a multimedia news organization focusing on the hotbed of tech and startup innovation in our awesome Los Angeles community. Okay, so let's jump in. And I have to say, please submit any questions that you have in the Slack chat. We definitely want to get to your questions, your thoughts as we go through this discussion. So I'll make sure I keep monitoring that and slip some stuff in where I can. But to kick us off, we've seen this trend of on-demand experiences kind of sneak up on us. And as you both have alluded to, I think the pandemic has made it even more important. But where do you think that tipping point was when consumers finally said, okay, you know, I really want these highly convenient and personalized experiences? When did that really come to fruition in your minds? And Claude, why don't we start off with you first?
Certainly. So, you know, for us, our whole network is based on partnership. Like from the beginning, you know, I mean, there's a lot of other SVOD platforms out there, like the Netflix, Hulu, et cetera, of the world. But ours has always been predicated on the fact that, look, comedians have a huge social following. They have a network that's available, but there's a certain sect of people that kind of can't make it to the comedy club, even before COVID, right? So there's this kind of missing market segment, if you will, of people that would love to go see a comedian, but they don't want to get sick. Do you know what I mean? So for us, it was kind of like, I mean, the only person that should die should be on stage. I'm sorry, I had to make that joke. I just, you know. So to that end, you know, we had a big uptick in downloads and subscribers because, you know, everybody's at home, you know, no surprise. So really kind of, for us, I guess to the tipping point question, it was really just, you know, we were ready to go with our partner program right around March 13th. And I think we all got shut down on March 15th. So we were kind of like, oh, we got shut down, but wait a minute, there's more demand for content. So the challenge for us is really, how do we do that now? You know, how do we fulfill that demand?
Yeah.
That's pretty spot on, man. So we actually launched on March 16th. That was the same day that social distancing effects went in play, right, by Mayor Garcetti. We created a social gathering app on the day, or we launched on the day that that went into effect. So kind of ironic if you think about it.
Yeah.
Comedy. So we, you know, the way I think about this is I come from the tech space, and I've been researching this for a while, as into why consumers are now going towards or online experiences or trying to bring something to themselves, right? I think it has to do with you know, well, access to information, right? We are developing a two-sided marketplace, right? So we have chefs on one side, we have clients on another side. We need to be able to transfer information from clients to chefs so they can accurately execute on any event that they have. So, you know, in the past, there was no mechanism that enabled you to have this at scale. So you could call a chef, or you could you know, go on Google and search for chefs, and then you'd be going in a round robin circle. So now that technology comes into play and you remove that back and forth, it makes it more scalable. So this may be more specific to Serve, but in general, to answer your question, Kelly, technology has played a massive part in the tipping point for consumers wanting on-demand experiences, right? And I mean, it's not just the creation of the iPhone or mobile apps, it's also leveraging things like big data or machine learning and AI to really create concepts and bring them to life.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think if I think about 10, 15 years ago, my standard for expectation when it came to entertainment, when it came to these different things, was so much lower. Whereas now I want everything, you know, on my iPhone. I want it immediate. I want it very personalized. Things like Netflix have certainly transformed how I think about recommendations and the content, how personalized I want that experience to be. But I'm curious, you know, you both kind of, this is a weird thing to say about COVID, but got lucky in a sense that this happened for your particular businesses. But when you were initially starting your business plans, and I'm sure you're thinking with an eye when hopefully, knock on wood, I'll use my head for lack of, we get out of this, you know, how do you think about educating consumers that your particular product is a must-have when there's so many different things out there, and they, you know, we might in a food space expect, oh, if I'm going to have a nice meal, I'm going to go out to a restaurant, which we can't really do right now, but in the future, or in, you know, for comedy, if I do live in a place like Los Angeles versus maybe somewhere more remote, you know, I might go to the comedy club. How have you thought about educating consumers that they have to use your product? And Ishan, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. So one of the key things that is coming out of this, right, is social engineering. We're kind of being engineered to stay at home. yes, once the ban gets lifted, I think people are going to go out. But for me personally, I'm actually enjoying staying at home a lot more and getting a lot more things done than I did in the past. It's kind of amazing in a sense, right? To think about. I don't know why I'm so much more productive now than I was before, but
No, I'm right there with you.
but the key thing here is in the past, from our research, the things that we found out, people don't know that you can get a chef to come to your house. That's interesting. I'm from India. I was born in India. I grew up here, but I spent my childhood in India, and a lot of people have chefs that come to their house that they'll make their food, and that is a norm. And we didn't have that here. So it made me think through why is that, and that's comes back to educating and telling people like, look, hey, this isn't just for the uber wealthy. This is for the average average person that just is busy, that requires healthy meals. Bring that to your house. Bring a chef that is trusted. We vet our chefs. We have background checks. We actually have a lot of steps before we onboard them, just to ensure trust and quality. And this, essentially, is what needs to be told to people, that hey, this is safe. This isn't. We aren't sending random human beings into your house. We're really checking who we send, and it is a really amazing experience when you have a chef make your food. I'm not sure if you guys have had that in your home before, but if you do, you can really see the difference.
Starting soon.
We've been doing things manually, but with COVID measures and whatnot in place, but definitely pushing the app here in October.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you, Claude?
For us, I just wanted to say, to make the point and to still be sensitive, to when you said about talking about all the screens, all screens matter. I think that that's a really important point. You have to be kind of ubiquitous, in our market, just everywhere. And then, for us to kind of keep the engagement going, we are doing this joke of the day that I just basically sift through our entire content library, which is a super fun job, by the way, and then pull out these gems of jokes, and then we send that free to everybody who signs up for joke of the day. So that's been what we have been doing. Plus, I think that people really, they, at least my generation really wants to be. I like to be hand fed the gems, or we're just hit all day long by different content, just begging for your energy. So look, you're gonna get a joke of the day from us, and you're just gonna know it's funny because it's hand picked, for lack of a better term. So I think that for us, it's really about partnering with the comics to expand our growth, and we have a partner program, where we basically work with comics to share the revenue from subscriptions that we generate through their social. So we have a way to kind of monetize everybody's idle social content during this time. So I think joke of the day is a big thing for us. And then, just working with partners to grow it. I mean, you can't think of I hate to say the other silver lining is, man, you couldn't have a pandemic in a more connected time, I don't know how many people are going back to work, it's so I feel for us, it's kind of content delivery anywhere. It's not work from home, it's work from anywhere. It's not laugh from home, it's laugh from anywhere. So I think that for us, it's really, we grow through partnerships.
Yeah. I think that you hit on something really interesting, that consumers like to be hand fed, the gems, because I think that's so true. You go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, TikTok now, there's so many different places for you to spend those couple of minutes that you want to turn off your brain, whether it's in between meetings or, as you're transitioning away from work. But I think that trying to build that brand of, hey, you're always going to get something funny from us. What to expect from Laugh Lounge is really insightful, and brings me to my next question. So very good job. Is this question about brand building, right? So we just touched on educating consumers. So educating them that, okay, from Laugh Lounge, you're always going to get something funny. From Serve, that we this would be such a great experience to have someone come in. It's a luxury. I don't have to have that, wonderful entertainment dinner experience by going out to the really, really expensive high-end restaurant. I can actually have someone do that in my home and make it intimate. But I'm curious, taking that one step further, and I'll start with you, Ishan, how are you crafting Serve's particular brand? Like what does Serve mean to the consumer, apart from the fact that you're going to get someone who's been vetted, that's going to be safe coming into your phone and give you this great experience?
Absolutely. So that is a great question. Obviously we have to take the consumer into consideration when building a food brand, right? And our number one customer, or actually one of our customers is the chef. Even as a consumer, as a foodie, right? If I'm booking a chef, I want to know their background. I want to know who they are. What kind of food can they make? Do they have a menu that I can take a look at? So it's important to bring on some of the best possible chefs that are out there. And that's what we've been doing. We've been building a network of really, really talented chefs, and we want to focus our branding, or we are focusing our branding around them. Their stories are interesting. There's unique. They come from all different verticals, from the restaurant space, or some of them used to be engineers in their previous life, which I was like, that's amazing. I did computer engineering in college, so I was like, wow, yeah. And I actually worked in the kitchen, so I can appreciate that. And they actually transformed to being a full-time chef, a personal chef. There's other guys that have moved here from Sweden that, one of the chefs followed us. His name's Robert Sandberg. I found out that he worked at Noma for 3 years. He's won a ton of awards over in Europe, and now he's here and he wants to be part of the platform. So these guys have like really interesting, unique stories, but this is something that people want. They want to be able to relate to that. So we want to highlight them, and we want to put them in actually basically the in visibility to foodies or people looking for chefs, because that trust or that variety is what consumers are looking for when they're looking to bring chefs home to their home.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. It's almost like you're creating this marketplace, for the consumer, for the chef to make that connection. And that actually makes me wonder a little bit about Laugh Lounge and what you guys are doing, Claude. Of course, I'm your perfect consumer, right? Like, I love comedy. I love watching all of the Netflix specials. Huge Eliza Schlesinger fan. How do you get, thinking about what Ishan just said, comics on the platform? How do you convince them, okay, I need to release, my awesome set here instead of actually getting someone to come into the comedy club?
Well, I think for us, it's like there's going to be some comics, like, let's just call it and I'm going to be generous here, the 1/10 of 1% of comics that get Netflix specials. And then there's the other top 10%, right? That whole group. So we cater to the ones that have rights that maybe not be airing somewhere else, but that could air on us. But we're also not exclusive. And I would say that we have more of a sense of discovery. Because I know, having worked in stand-up myself and, shed so much dignity on the stage that, it's silly that you ultimately, you realize there's a lot of really great talent out there that may not ever get to the light of television. So I think that for us, there's a home for stand-up across the board. But I also think comics are like, comics are great at stand-up, being a stand-up myself, but they're also a little like herding cats. You know what I mean? So trying to get a comic to open Photoshop, and we'll grow a beard waiting for that to happen. So I think that there's a symbiosis in that partnership element, right? It's like we'll provide the infrastructure and then allow them to succeed using our software, so that it's like a mutual relationship, because success just doesn't happen in a vacuum unless you count space, in which all success happens in a vacuum.
Yeah. I love that there's that connection that you guys both have of it's not just about the consumer, which is kind of originally when I came into this conversation, I was thinking, oh, okay, I could use Serve, for example. My bachelorette party, if it ever happens, is going to be in Vegas. Maybe one night we have a chef come and cook for us rather than go out and have that experience. Or I love comedy. I'm going to go watch Laugh Lounge. But there's so much more that you're doing for the chefs, that you're doing for these comics, giving them exposure, giving them a way to very easily connect and get business, which I think is really important to remember. But going back to the consumer piece, Claude, I'm curious, how you get over this element that comedy is often the success of it is very predicated on being in person. I'll give you an example. Los Angeles, we're all basically still in quarantine here, as we all know. And over at the Magic Castle, Magic Asphalt, they're doing these drive-in comedy shows, and they're awesome. I love it. I've gone a couple of different times, but it's still very strange. It's strange for that comic to do that. And it's strange for even the audience to kind of understand what is funny and what isn't. You talk about herding cats for comics. It's like a little bit like, as a consumer, I need to be told when the joke is funny too, right? So I'm assuming a lot of your stuff is recorded in a live studio audience, but kind of how are you thinking about that?
So I'll tell you, because look, some shows are live, and look, here's the thing about doing. If I could just make a quick comment on the drive-in thing, as cool as that seems, it's not the same experience, So like having that windshield in between you and the jokes is just weird. And I had a friend who was doing one of those shows, and he was like, "Dude, you haven't lived until you've had somebody drive out during your show," And so
I swear it wasn't me.
Yeah. So I think that we're in this brave new world. I think that what we would like to facilitate is shows from around the world all being streamed to us, and then we facilitate that to you as the consumer. So that's, again, what we're driving at is like, we know there's going to be shows that are half capacity in a lot of states. We know there's going to be limited seating. So what we're doing is basically going out and working to put this premium content out on a nightly basis. So that's basically becomes like, no matter where you are, you'll be able to highlight new talent and see something live. So to your point, it is a little different. So interactivity is a big part of it. So being able to tip the comics, being able to have an emoji. I mean, I'm not really like into having a conversation during the live performance, because I feel like that kind of runs contrary to comedy club, doctrine. But I do think that tipping and the pay-per-view model is going to be, in our industry, kind of a new standard moving forward.
Yeah, that is a really interesting conception, because that takes it one step further versus something like Netflix, right? I go on, it's a very passive experience. I watch it. There's somewhat of a laugh track, right? Because it's recorded live, or it's a recorded show from a live performance. But with your model, you can actually show the comic that you appreciate it. There's that element of almost expected engagement, rather than me going to the fridge and whatnot, because that would be, I would get called out in a comedy club if I did that.
It's okay, not so TV. It's a different medium, right? So great point.
Which certainly differentiates it if I'm going to decide to go watch Laugh Lounge versus just throw in The Boys on Amazon Prime or something. It's more of an engaging experience. So switching gears a little bit, I'm curious with you, Ishan, with Serve, how do you think about scaling this operation? Because it's very much, I know you're in a couple cities right now. It's very much that in-person module. You've got to get boots on the ground, but you're also doing some virtual classes and things like that. As you guys obviously know, you're doing one tonight for us all. But how are you thinking about that geographic expansion point when it comes to the business?
That's a great question. There's a few different factors that play into answering that, right? Number one, different regions actually have different needs. For example, take Uber, for example, right? In LA, you have like 8 different flavors of Uber X, Uber SUV, so on and so forth. You go to Iowa, my parents live in Iowa, that's why I was in Iowa. You will only have Uber X, or I think they also have Uber Black. So you'll have 2 different things, right? So we wanna assess what is it that the market wants. For example, Wisconsin, there's chefs that are out of work during winter. Geneva, Wisconsin, it's a lake town. So it's a summer town, right? A lot of tourism. So there's a lot of chefs that go there for restaurants. So they, come winter, they end up being out of jobs. they want to be able to provide their services. This is where something like a daily meals or meal plans for families comes into play. So if we look at the Midwest and cities like that, it's more, we want to gear services more towards the needs of that market. Number two, you mentioned boots on the ground. I love the fact that you brought that up. This is something that I took this as a challenge since day one, because you know what? How can you create a platform that removes us actually having to be in person and seeing every single person, every single chef that we onboard, you know, face to face? Well, look at what we're doing right now, communicating via virtual conference, right? So this is one of the pieces, but we took the operational pieces that we have and streamlined it. So from the onboarding to, from the recruitment to application to onboarding of the chef, it can be done virtually as long as you know, we're able to see you and make sure you are who you say you are. Because you know, if you book a chef and if you book Ishan as your chef and Claude shows up, that's going to be no fun, right? So we wanted to have a completely automated system, and we're working towards that to onboard to onboard chefs. So that removes having boots on the ground. We can manage things remotely. So does that kind of answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really interesting point, because I mean, we've all been focusing on how tough COVID has made things, but I think in this perspective, it's actually armed you with the tools to be able to do that. Because if you're going to expand to other countries eventually, right, like that's going to be really hard to go do that. Whereas, you know, we can have a video conference and it can be pretty easy to, even, you know, with time difference and such, in order to do that. And speaking of COVID, I'm curious how that affected specifically Serve, like the business model. I mean, you launched March 16th, right? But you planned for a no COVID world, as we all did. You know, what changes have you made as you had to launch in this, and it lasted longer than I think you probably expected?
It definitely has. No, I was like, by the time it's October, everything's going to be back open. We'll be ready to go. No, I don't know when this is going to end, but no, that's a great question. So first and foremost, the obvious answer is we took into consideration what's going on with COVID, the guidelines, right? We have advisors that actually developed the guidelines for restaurants reopening. And so he's a vice president at the National Restaurant Association, and he actually created guidelines for personal chefs as well. So we took those guidelines, implemented that. We needed our chefs to know, hey, you know what, masks on, gloves on at all times, measure your temperature, show that to the client, and when you get into the kitchen, always sanitize your space, stay 6 feet away from the clients. You know, make yourself as hospitable as possible, but from taking social distancing measures in play. So we implemented that. At the same time, COVID did, you know, throw a monkey wrench into our marketing plans. We expected to go full force right out the gate, but you know, that's also made us a little more lean, a little more scrappy. Doing virtual events, virtual cook-alongs, and we've done a few of them, and we've started to form partnerships through that. It's actually started to get more exposure, bring more eyes onto sort of what chefs are doing and what we're doing. So I think in a way, we took this, you know, situation and are looking at the positives, because it did buy us more time, and it also, you know, gave us ways to get in front of people at low cost, which, you know, from a company standpoint, from a business standpoint, you can't ask for more. It is an unfortunate situation, but you know, make the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Claude, I mean, I think you guys were, of course, very well positioned. All of a sudden, we're all at home. We need time, or we need content to fill our time. And this was probably a good point. But what were there things that affected your business from COVID negatively, positively, that you were surprised about?
Yeah, well, yeah, great question. And I want to just say every time that you're talking, Ishan over there, I'm getting hungry. I'm just like, dude, I got to get this guy going. Got to get this going. And I was also just as somebody who's gained, like, what do they call it? The COVID 10 or 20 or whatever it is.
Quarantine 15.
Quarantine 15. I got like two of those. So I just want to say that what a great healthy alternative, as opposed to just like, knowing what's coming when, and that, that it's in alignment with what your LA diet is or whatever. So for us, I would say like in terms of pivotal moments is we've been streaming from clubs for about a year and a half, 2 years, just as an alternative. But we got brought on to do this event called Laugh Aid, which was this basically there everybody was like not sure what was going where and who was contagious or what. So they wanted to do this charity event to raise money for comedians out of work. And so like literally we're dressed like in like the surgical gear, the PPE, like all of us in a control room. It was supposed to be for a 1 hour telethon, and it went 8.5 hours. Right. So we're like, oh my God, it went, it was supposed to be like, oh, we're going to raise like, 20 grand, raise like $370,000 for Comedy Gives Back. And then, all distributed in grants for comedians. But I think it was at that point that it was like such a silver lining, because I was like, oh my God, like we had a whole calendar full of shows, like 250 shows booked for 2020. And now everybody's closed. But here we are, like with 75 comedians performing over 8 hours. And we got 1,000 subscribers that day. So it was like, you just don't know what's gonna lead to what. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. Wow, 8 hours.
8 hours.
I can't imagine. Like you guys
like,
thought it was gonna be only for a couple. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then everybody's in different locations, and like now Zoom is kind of like this ubiquitous thing. Like everybody knows it, like a language, like grammar, right? But back then it was like we had comedians like, just nobody know, yeah. But it's just like you don't do without trying, right? That's the whole entrepreneurship, right, Ishan? Like that's the thing. You have to jump in.
Absolutely, go after it, man. That's what it takes.
Yeah. So, I'm curious. It's the way that I think about your businesses if I were going to interact with them as a consumer, is it would be for potentially entertainment, or if I had a family and I'm working crazy hours, right? Like I might bring in a chef from Serve to get me set up for the week. So I'd love for you to answer, who do you identify as your competitors? Because I find your businesses so unique and so interesting and kind of almost a first mover in their respective fields. But how do you think about who your competitors are? And also, do you think of yourselves as competing for that entertainment time of someone's day? So Ishan, maybe let's go to you.
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. And I'm going to echo something that Claude has been saying this whole time, partnerships. I would not say that we are competing with a company like Laugh Lounge. Actually, that they're a complement to what we're doing. Think about Friday night, like your friends are hanging out. You want entertainment, you want laughter, you want moments of togetherness, right? Make memories. You can have Laugh Lounge provide a virtual comedian at the same time, get a chef in your house, make amazing food, and create an experience that's just on another level. These are things that complement one another. They don't technically compete with one another. So that partnership element to what Serve is doing and what Claude and Laugh Lounge and other companies out there are doing as well. There's on-demand musicians that you can bring to your house. It's interesting. So these things are being still in development, in my opinion, right? And over a period of time, we'll see these in-home experiences kind of take off. I think, I mean, take for example, if you have a backyard. I would love to have my friends over and have a musician, have a barbecue. Like it would be a good 4 to 6 hours. That would be super satisfying because you get to see everyone you like, listen to some good music, eat some good food. And I mean, what's better than that? That's kind of the best possible Saturday. In terms of competitors, I guess in a sense, this marketplace is brand new. There's people that are manually booking chefs. I think it's not as much as a competitor as much as we need to have a mind shift, a paradigm shift to, hey, you go to an aggregator instead of going direct and then kind of running around trying to find the one that you want. Our platform takes your whole parameters, what occasion, what cuisine, what time, date, all these things into consideration, and then finds you the best possible chef for that time frame or your occasion. So I would say, you know, our competitors are there. Obviously, local chefs. There's other platforms, online platforms, but they're not really doing what we're doing. We're trying to create experiences, and they're providing a booking system essentially. So we're taking you right to the end goal. Whether you want to have a birthday party or a dinner party, you'll see chefs and menus that match that experience. But yeah, man, Claude, at some point you and I should definitely connect and talk about maybe creating a joint experience.
You know, I'll send a comedian along with the casserole, bro.
You bring the comedian, I'll bring the food.
Deal.
We can run a pilot. We can run a pilot.
It's like Shark Tank all of a sudden.
I love that. Please invite me to that. No, I think that that's a really interesting point, like thinking about it as around that partnership space. And especially as we come out of COVID, I think we've all engaged with businesses in a like much more extreme way, like with streaming services, you know, with these on-demand experiences, because we haven't been able to go out into the regular world, and thinking, you know, as an on-demand business, how you can partner and find ways to make that experience so essential going forth is really smart. But Claude, I'd love to ask you your answer to the question, because, you know, I'm curious how you think about competing for time against, you know, it's a Friday night, right? Maybe I have ordered serve, but maybe I throw on The Boys. Maybe I throw on Netflix. Maybe I don't know, throw on an interactive sort of game show type of thing. So how do you consider competing for consumers' time in that entertainment space?
Great question. I mean, for us, it's, look, you have the comedians that you follow them where? On social, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to be there where your audience is, basically saying, look, here's the show that we're putting together. And again, if you're a stand-up fan and you're going to go to a club, I'm partnering with that club, because that club might be great at producing comedy shows. They're not going to be great at production, you know? And like, I don't know if you guys have been to, like, we were just talking about the Zoom, like, threshold of learning. Like, for those of us, like, I have an 8-year-old daughter, I'm homeschooling. It's like a comedy show in its own right, you know? So I think that what we have a little, to your point, we don't really have, it is kind of a land grab from a technology play, because there isn't anybody that's doing this right now in the space the way that we're doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like for that point, it's like, it's, you know, I hate to sound like your dad here, but you reap what you sow. You know, we've been out here, like, you know, Ishan's been learning his business for, you know, as long as he's been learning it. I've been learning mine. And it's like, you know, oh my gosh, look, here's an opportunity to go out and not only like build, you know, something great for us. Look, we make no mistakes. We obviously got into this because we want to build something great. But I think that we do that through, instead of, you know, to Ishan's point, competing, collaborating, you know, so if you're looking for a live stand-up show, like we talked about earlier, it's just a different animal than Friends. I'm dating myself. It's a different animal than Archie Bunker, you know? And no, it's a different animal. And I think that we're breaking new ground because of what's available technologically speaking, because of the interwebs and all of the fast, you know, 5G and the tech that we're all going to use to build our businesses. And so for us, it's about providing access to what's already happening out there every night of the week that you would probably enjoy, but you just don't know that it's there. So access, discovery, partnership.
Yeah, well, don't worry. Friends is my favorite TV show of all time. So you're not dating yourself, or okay, we're just both old at this point. I feel like quarantine's aged me. But that is a really good point, that the comic space is so individually driven, right? Like I said, I love Eliza Schlesinger, you know, she's having a show in Anaheim and I'm definitely driving there to go see it. So if you're partnering with these different comics, it's definitely going to drive that engagement. And it's just going to snowball from there. But so, okay, so eventually we're going to get out of COVID, though it doesn't feel like it. We will. And so how are you thinking about, you know, getting back into the community and with your own businesses? Are there challenges that you see? You know, maybe with Serve, it's I'd love to hear you talk about how you're thinking about ensuring that people feel safe with someone coming into their home during this post sort of not totally through a pandemic era rather. And then, you know, with Laugh Lounge, I'm curious how you're thinking about ensuring that you keep that ground that you've gained with the consumer, that when I can go out into the world, why am I going to choose staying at home with you guys? So Ishan, why don't we kick it off with you?
Absolutely. As long as COVID is going to be around, I think we're going to keep our guidelines in place. Once the government or the CDC tells us, hey, it's done with, you know, obviously that's going to be a great celebratory moment. Definitely using script for myself that day. But once that happens, right, I alluded to this earlier in terms of social engineering, when people are now like more comfortable staying home on weeknights or weekends. It is an alternative to going to a restaurant, and it's also accessible. The access to this, we're going to leverage this time right now to make sure people understand, hey, you have access to this service. This is something that exists today, and it can be brought to you. It's simple, it's easy, and it's fun. And keep at it. Basically, keep developing that recall for consumers to know, hey, look, you can bring a chef to yourself. Keep saying it as many times as possible until it scales and people know organically, right? You have to scale organically. And then obviously, you know, once these measures are lifted, we definitely would be looking at partnerships, events to get this in front of people. But you know, for the time being, organic is the key thing. Again, once COVID is over, we'll look at more promotional, brand-based collaborations to get this in front of people. Obviously, once Claude and I devise our plans are to get chefs and comedians together, right? We'll blow it up. So no, it's an interesting question. COVID is you know, post-COVID world, you can only speculate. My understanding is that people will, you know, kind of be used to staying home, and they're still going to want these fun experiences at home. So we fit right in. I think that's yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know, sometimes you just don't, you don't know the solution until the problem presents itself, you know. And then my wife slaps me. So, but yeah, I think it's a great idea is putting chefs and comedians back to work, you know. It's like, you know, a match made in heaven. And so for us, you know, I think, you know, in terms of keeping customers downstream from COVID, you know, you couldn't have had a better opportunity to isolate a specific market segment of people that want to go to a comedy club but can't for some reason. Not even like COVID, but like think about all the people that would love to watch a live show from, you know, their home, their parents' house, a nursing home, the military, an institution, like wherever. But you're never going to get to Cleveland or Detroit or Ohio or Los Angeles or like any of these participating partners, right, that we want to work with to do these shows. Like that's what we're providing is diversity. And you know, and I think that moving forward is you'll always be able to go to the club. Let's call it the second best seat in the house, right? That's what we're aiming for. So it's like we don't want to, you know, we don't want to cannibalize the club audience. We want to partner with them to expand beyond, you know, physical venue capacities, local audiences. Like, you know, let's do a live stream with a comic outside, you know, this zone here to a different audience in another country. You know, all of which can be done now, you know, through geofencing and whatnot. So I think for us, it's you know, kind of how do we get into serving their needs, you know, to kind of serve our own, so to speak.
Mm. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it, as there, when we're coming out of COVID, you're going to see what needs to be done based on what your comics are coming to you and experiencing. I'm curious, do you feel like we are at the beginning of an explosion when it comes to on-demand experiences? I mean, I think like you guys already, Claude's already nodding. You guys are at the forefront of this. But I feel like there's so much more potential across all of these, these different industries for this, especially coming out of COVID. But how do you balance that if I guess advice wise, right? For someone who is thinking about stepping into this space as an entrepreneur, how would you advise them to think about stepping into this space that may just take off in a way that we can't even predict? And Claude, you were vehemently nodding, so let's start with you.
Um, well, my advice would be, to follow somebody that's doing it and then jump in. Like, as somebody who's blown way too much of their own money on projects. But I would say that, it's the brave new world. You know what I mean? And, necessity is the mother of invention. Now I do sound like your dad. There's just nothing like, so I think that for me, the advice is like, think about what's coming and how we can fit into that. And then I think that by providing a service, you're also getting a customer. So I think that being nimble, being flexible, and if I could just give a shout out to Klaviyo, because one thing COVID forced us, and we're in an incubator, Science, I got to give them a big shout out in Santa Monica. That's our incubator. But Klaviyo and Hootsuite, and I'm not doing this for any branded reason, I'm just telling this from honest to God experience, have saved my life because, look, I don't have staff that could be here when COVID hit. I don't have staff, I had people that could do work from remote, but I need to have a grip on all my marketing, on all my social. So those two applications, which I still, I'm such a fanboy of Klaviyo, but and I'm probably saying it wrong, but I'm just saying they literally allowed me to control all my branding, all my marketing, and just have it all in one place so that it's like, you know what, I got to do all my email marketing for the week. And then I can also, measure the success of that marketing as one person, I mean, my mom would be so proud, I could just get it all into 1.5 hours a day, just nailing it down. And then you see it go out and you see the success. So I feel like, as frustrating and scary as it might be to start a business, it's also never been easier to be in control of what's around it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Ishan.
Oh, that was spot on. I think, the biggest thing I would say is, and it's funny, you mentioned, blowing a lot of your own money to test and learn. Well, to be honest, this is like pioneering something new. On-demand experiences are something very new and something that's takes a lot of information and data to craft. So testing, measuring, and then building is absolutely key. I think we did over 100 manual jobs before we were like, okay, this is exactly how consumers or customers want this information. This is how chefs want to see this information. Chefs need to know what's in your kitchen, what kind of stoves you have, all this little data points you wouldn't naturally think of if you just jumped in. That's when the blowing of the money happens, right? Because you don't want to get in a cycle where you're building something and then you have to rip it apart and then restart again. You want to learn the process, because the biggest thing with on-demand or any experience is that it's process oriented. If you're going to provide experience, think about what you're doing, think about what you're providing, and then think about all the variables that go into making that happen. So I know you can't think of everything. That's where information, big data, machine learning comes into play. But you can always start off with the with the MVP, minimal viable product, and just focus on the key factors that consumers, if you're going to build a two-sided marketplace, focus on what both sides want, and then build around that. The connecting of the two sides, that's more simpler, but focus on what two sides want. Once you know that, it's easier to actually onboard your service providers, and then acquire clientele. Until you get to that point, it's difficult. It's Claude taken us 2 years to get there, but we're finally getting. I'm more excited. I'm stoked to put this out in the world.
Again, yeah.
It's the Reid Hoffman quote that I think he said, if your first release does not embarrass you, you didn't do your job. So
yeah,
it takes it's iterative. It keeps going.
Yeah,
just don't quit.
That's right. You don't quit. That's how we just like Cool Hand Luke. You just keep getting. But
I love that words to live by. Yeah, I love that you brought up this point though around data. I mean, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but as I learn more and more throughout this conversation about how you've been thinking about your businesses, you are so data driven. Like it's almost, I would almost characterize you as a hybrid, like entertainment, comedy tech company, right? A hybrid food tech company, because you are so much of, I'm sure, like what you're recommending to consumers, that you've seen that they've been searching for certain types of food or certain types of chefs. And similarly, watching certain types of comedy, you can really get in deep and attack that relationship in a way that a restaurant can't do with me. The comedy store can't do with me, because they just don't have that information. So I think it's so interesting how you are taking these experiences that are, entertainment based and bringing that technology aspect. I admire that so much. A little scary when you think about it, but very admirable. I just have to get over how much data everyone has on me. I mean, I'm on TikTok, right?
I know,
so, right? So we've got a couple of questions from the audience here that I'll field to you. So the first would be, if this is kind of a Shark Tank moment, so get ready. If each of you could invest in an on-demand experience outside of your wheelhouse, what would you choose to?
Music.
Music. Okay, why music?
Well, because I think that, it's universal. Everybody loves it. Everybody has their jam. Everybody has their bands. Everybody has their Spotify channel, whatever. So I think that, for me, that's something that's where, that's like the next level, when I think of, in terms of integration with technology and music is just in its infancy. So again, it's not in my wheelhouse, music. It's foreign to me. I couldn't carry a tune if it had a handle on it. So, but it's that would be what I would want to do outside the wheelhouse.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I've definitely seen, musicians try to go direct during this time, because it's that gig economy that has been so disrupted. And so if you could actually make a marketplace, make a way for me to engage with them, I think that would be smart. What about you, Ishan?
Well, aside what I'm doing or what we're doing, but I would say, you know what? I'm a single guy. I get busy. I like the on-demand gig economy space. So I would say cleaning services, right? Get someone to come in and clean your place on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. There are companies that are doing that. One of the companies that I've studied and learned a lot from, Handy, they've done a phenomenal job. They just got acquired. But companies like that are enabling, people are actually driving more demand to service providers. That's, it's pretty cool. There are a lot of them out there, and then, if whichever company can aggregate this properly and bring jobs to these people, I think, it's just a win-win on both sides. You're helping the economy, you're helping bring jobs to a service provider, and you're making the consumer happy by having either a clean space or food in the fridge or whatever it may be. So the gig economy space is for me very cool.
Yeah, yeah, and that getting at that consumer need, a voracious need, it feels like, for convenience. I think is really smart, because you're right. Like, I don't have time to, well, I have time to clean my house now, but hopefully in the future, I'll be out in the world, and it's so hard to get connected with someone who's vetted, who, has recommendations from a bunch of people. Like, I could even see that marketplace coming into play, where you have a recommendation system, a 5-star system, and you can kind of feel comfortable with someone coming into your home and doing that. Another question that we have from folks. So this, I love this. I love that this person made this comparison. Ishan, you're the Uber for chefs, which I love. So what steps we've talked about the fact that you vet your chefs very, very closely. What steps are you taking specifically to do that? And then kind of, it's not on a safety perspective, but on a talent perspective, I'd love, from you, Claude, to also answer that. How do you vet your comedians? So Ishan, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. Streamline and automate. It's the best thing you can do. Is if you can create a process that lets a chef hop on and create all their products and services without us handholding them, it's going to take a lot. It takes time. It's an iterative process, but that's, the key thing that we want to build out. And then from a client perspective, how can I find the best possible chef for whatever I need? It's a very dynamic thing. A single chef can do a magnitude of different things. So how do we segment that out, and how do we position that in front of the clientele? That's the key challenge that we want to solve. That is what we've solved for special occasions and daily meals. So that's it's going to be an ongoing process, but that's where my head's at.
Yeah. And what about you, Claude, on the talent side? Do you ever do like a virtual audition, or do you look at tapes, a reel that someone has?
We just don't vet talent. No, I'm kidding. We do. We basically have, so we've been doing stand-up. This is an embarrassingly long, time, 20 years, 25 years. So, we've worked most of the clubs kind of from the club level out to now. And again, to speak to what Sean was saying, it's like partnership, right? So there's 300 comedy clubs in this country. I want to be a partner with all of them. You know what I mean? I want to work with all of them. And when it comes to comedians, like, we handpick, I'm going to actually have to do an ad like handpicked comedy, like the guys like picking fruit. I think it needs to be something like that, because I handpick all the content that goes out myself. I overlook all the comedy, the copy that goes out. And again, that may seem like at first to be like, cumbersome, but again, like in a slightly different sense, we're delivering that one craft product digitally to, tens of thousands of people, every single day. So to me, that's like, it's not an automated process yet, I guess, but I think that like having a hand in the brand ID is part of like what you're gonna, to your earlier point, Kelly, like what you're gonna get from us is gonna be specific and like custom tailored. And I think you actually said something earlier that really that rung true, which is about, it was just open field for metadata. Like, what kind of comedy do you like? What genre do you like? There's so many fields, so many axes you can actually cue on from somebody's onboard, from their Facebook preferences, from wherever you're pulling that data. So it's like you'll be getting like a custom playlist that belongs to you. Do you know what I mean? That suits your needs. So you won't have to look, You'll be like, uh-oh, there's a notification. This better be a good one. You know what I mean? And it will be. So, I think that for us, again, it's, being willing to dive in and use the tools, and then vetting the artist, because, they're not going to get out there and do this on their own. They don't have time. They're busy making the jokes.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. I think that's a really interesting point around, that craft product, as you say, like, it's going to be super high quality if I'm engaging with this. Yeah. Well, listen, you guys have given so many great sound bites, so many fun quotes. We have the one, Claude, that you mentioned trending across the Slack channel. Sometimes you don't know the solution until the problem presents itself.
Yes.
But I just want to thank you both so much for your time today, and for sharing these things. I've had really fun time with this conversation. So just thanks for sharing your experiences and for being here.
Cheers.
Thank you for having me.
Guys.
Thank you, Kelly, for moderating. And it's great to see Claude and Ishan form some potential partnership opportunities here. So it's good. I think we've made a nice little connection here at e-commerce week LA. So again, thank you, Kelly. It's so cool to don't know the solution until the problem presents itself. I think that one's gonna resonate through a lot of the people that are paying attention. And it's so cool to hear about the adversity that has been taken and how people are making the most of it. One of the really inspiring themes throughout the whole day has been these amazing people that are taking these challenges and really just kind of running with novel solutions. So it's exciting to see that. It's inspiring for all of us paying attention. So thanks for all of that.